1,000 years ago, long before the first European ships touched American shores, a sprawling city of pyramids, plazas, and power ruled the heart of North America. A city so vast and advanced that it defies the imagination of history itself. This was Cahokia, a metropolis that rose from the fertile floodplains near the Mississippi River, where tens of thousands of people gathered under a sky of smoke and ceremony, where towering mounds of earth reached toward the heavens, and where rulers commanded not just through might, but through mystery. By the year 1050 CE, Cahokia had become the largest urban center north of Mexico, a city larger than medieval London, with grand avenues, complex trade routes, and an intricate social order that stunned all who later tried to comprehend it. At its core stood Monk's Mound, a colossal platform of packed earth, taller than a 10-story building, and so massive it contained more than 22 million cubic feet of soil, all moved by human hands, basket by basket. Surrounding it were temples that caught the sunrise, neighborhoods humming with artisans, farmers, and traders, and a vast central plaza that echoed with ritual drums and chants that carried across the Mississippi wind. This was no scattered village. This was a civilization. Yet what makes Cahokia truly haunting is not its grandeur, but its silence. For within just a few centuries, it was gone. No armies destroyed it, no plague consumed it. The people who built it simply vanished, leaving behind the silent bones of a city that once ruled a continent. Who were these people who built America's first true city, and what drove them to construct monuments that rivaled Egypt's in ambition? The story of Cahokia begins in the earth itself, in the centuries when the rivers ran high and the soil was rich. The land between the Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers offered everything: fertile fields for maize, abundant fish and game, and the perfect crossroads for trade. Here, early farmers thrived, and their villages slowly grew. But something extraordinary happened around the year 1000. Population exploded, culture flourished, and a new belief system rose that fused politics, religion, and astronomy into one. The city's rulers, often called the Sun Chiefs, claimed divine power, positioning themselves as intermediaries between the heavens and the earth. They organized massive construction projects, demanded labor tributes, and staged elaborate ceremonies that united thousands in a shared cosmic order. The people of Cahokia looked to the skies for meaning, tracking the stars with a wooden circle known today as Woodhenge, a prehistoric calendar that marked the solstices and guided the rhythms of life and ritual. Each dawn during the equinox, priests and pilgrims would gather as the sun rose precisely between posts, casting light across the city's central mound, a spectacle of power and precision that linked their world to the cosmos. The Cahokians' mastery of the land was no less extraordinary. Their engineers built massive levees and ditches to control flooding, while farmers cultivated fields of corn that sustained an empire. Artisans crafted exquisite shell ornaments, copper plates, and effigy pottery that traveled across thousands of miles through vast trade networks reaching the Great Lakes, the Gulf Coast, and the Appalachian Mountains. Exotic goods poured into Cahokia: mica, obsidian, pearls, and feathers, symbols of a city that was not only the political, but also the spiritual capital of a continent. Yet beneath this surface of order and beauty lay tensions: the weight of hierarchy, the struggle for resources, and the fragility of an ecosystem pushed to its limits. Archaeologists have unearthed evidence of human sacrifice. Young women, their lives taken as offerings in rituals of renewal and dominance, grim reminders that power and faith were intertwined in ways both sacred and brutal. Around 1150 CE, Cahokia reached its zenith. Tens of thousands crowded its plazas. Smoke rose from countless hearths, and the echoes of drums and ceremonies filled the air. The Sun Chiefs stood upon their mounds, overseeing a realm that stretched for hundreds of miles. From the central plaza, one could look across a landscape sculpted entirely by human ambition. Earthworks aligned with stars, homes clustered by rank, and distant fields that fed the masses. But the city's greatness was also its undoing. Deforestation stripped the nearby forests for timber and fuel. Floods grew worse as the land eroded. Food shortages and social unrest began to ripple through the population. The same unity that had built Cahokia began to fracture under its own weight. Climate shifts brought droughts, and as the Mississippi's rhythms changed, the once rich fields turned unreliable. The ruling elite, once seen as divine, faced rebellion and loss of faith. The grand ceremonies grew smaller, the plazas emptier, and the fires atop Monk's Mound dimmed. By 1300 CE, the city that had once dominated the heart of the continent was largely abandoned. Its temples left to crumble, its palisades to rot, its story swallowed by time. The people dispersed into smaller villages, carrying with them fragments of their culture, their myths, and their memories. For centuries, the land where Cahokia once stood lay forgotten, its massive mounds mistaken by settlers for mere hills. Even as European explorers crossed the Mississippi, they never imagined that beneath their feet had thrived a city greater than any they could conceive in the so-called New World. It wasn't until the 19th century that archaeologists began to uncover the truth, that this was not the work of an unknown race, but of Native American ancestors whose achievements rivaled any ancient civilization. Every mound unearthed told a story of labor, belief, and community, a story of how human hands reshaped an entire landscape without metal tools or beasts of burden. The sheer scale of what they built forces us to rethink everything we know about America's past. Cahokia was not a myth, it was a metropolis, organized, intelligent, spiritual, and deeply human. Today, the site of Cahokia Mounds stands as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, its grassy rises silhouetted against the Illinois sky, its silence speaking louder than words. Visitors walk its ancient pathways and climb Monk's Mound, gazing across what was once the heart of a lost civilization, trying to imagine the chants, the smoke, the pulse of life that once filled this place. Yet Cahokia's story is more than a tale of rise and fall. It is a mirror held up to humanity itself, a reminder that greatness can emerge anywhere, that civilizations rise not from wealth or conquest alone, but from vision, belief, and cooperation. And it warns us, too, that even the most magnificent societies can vanish when their balance with nature and one another is broken. As the sun sets over the Mississippi, casting long shadows over the mounds, one can almost hear the echoes of 1,000 drums and see the faint flicker of fire atop the great mound. A city not dead, but sleeping in the soil of memory. Cahokia was America's first city, a metropolis born from the dreams of a people who saw the stars as their destiny. And though time has erased their names, their legacy endures, written not in stone, but in the earth itself, where the story of the vanished city still beats quietly beneath our feet, waiting for those who dare to listen.